If your family was a band and each member of your family played their own instrument, how's it sounding right now? Are you all playing in harmony? Is everyone listening to the beat? Who's playing out of tune? And more importantly, are you rehearsed enough to play a gig tomorrow night? My name's Oliver and I'm a clinical director and a family systems therapist, and I love helping parents and teens grow great relationships. This video is about 5 family communication skills bundled into one activity that I like to give the families that I work with in my private practice. I'm going to share my tips and tricks with you because I want every family to be able to play beautiful music together. Make sure you stay tuned until number 4 because it's my favorite. And please hit subscribe, like, follow, share for more parenting tips and family communication advice. So this idea I'm calling the weekly jam, otherwise known as the house meeting. The metaphor is just like a band needs to practice before a show. This requires your family to gather for a weekly or monthly family meeting. Now, before you combust thinking about how you're going to find the time to fit this into everyone's schedule, it does not have to take long. You can fit it in with a family meal or even over breakfast one morning. The family meeting is based on a practice that I came across when I was running residential treatment centers called clinical availability. So whenever people come and stay in rehabs or mental health facilities, they need to know that they're being heard and being seen by the clinical team. One of the ways that I made this happen was by creating a weekly house meeting, and I got as many members of my team as I could and all of the clients together on a Friday afternoon to discuss plans for the week ahead. So this dedicated time fostered open communication, trust, a stronger support network, as well as more practical things like, can we get more peanut butter? So I translated this idea that I was using in residential treatment to families just like yours and the families that I see in private practice. It's all about a structured format that helps families engage with each other, address concerns, celebrate progress, and provide a sort of safe space for everyone to express themselves. As your kids get older and turn into teens and then young adults, a structured time and space like this is going to be instrumental in continuing to provide that nurturing environment that they need as they grow more independent. If you really think about it, the message you're sending your children with a weekly house meeting is your voice matters. Your wishes are important for me to hear, although not necessarily act on. Here's a simple format for you to implement in your family. At its basic level, all you have to do is have everyone in the meeting answer these 3 questions. What worked, what didn't work, and what do you want even more of this week? This is all a form of feedback. It's encouraging your kids to share honestly and respectfully and to ask for what they need and to tolerate hearing feedback about themselves. Now, this isn't a one-way street. This is also an opportunity for caregivers and parents to remind your kids of rules, expectations, and consequences. But if you start with listening to your kids' needs and wants and then, seriously consider them and discuss them, it's only fair that they get to listen to your needs and your wants. This section of the meeting is to remind them that, you can't color on walls, the lights are turned off at 10 p.m, and if you borrow something, you have to ask first. There's also a very practical component to having a meeting like this. In any corporate job I've had, and even in the clinical world, my day is often packed with meetings. And these are important to organize, delegate, share information. I'm sure you've had many meetings this week yourself. The family house meeting is just the same as a team meeting you would do at work, but for your family, which I imagine is more important than work, yet we don't seem to do it. So on a practical level, I think it's an opportunity for everyone to think about the week ahead, what they need, who's driving who. It's a way to organize. Having a structured meeting like this gives you a space in the week where kids can come and ask you for the things, which is better than those very spontaneous moments that they seem to come up with to remind you that they need a new pair of shoes or, that there's an assignment due tomorrow that they need your help with. When you have a time scheduled in your week that is specifically for asking for new shoes or help with homework, it gives you full permission to say something like, "Great, will you remind me in the house meeting, please?" Now, I think this is a great life lessons for teens and tweens. You're saying that, yes, I want to hear what you want to say and what you need, but you also have a responsibility to hold on to it till the appropriate moment. I think that is an executive functioning thing. Okay, so tip number 2 is all about active listening. A band cannot create beautiful music without listening to each other. And the weekly house meeting gives everyone in the house an opportunity to really hear each other. So again, it's a scheduled time in your week where you can give family members your full attention. The real skill in this is called active listening. It's listening to understand rather than listening to respond. And it is hard work. It's what I do for a living, and it's quite exhausting. Listening to respond looks a bit like this. So when I was 7, I had this really sort of traumatic... Did you send that email to your boss? On the way back from this, we have to go to the grocery store. Don't forget, we need dishwasher soap and trash bags and the dog food. Don't forget the dog food. Remember that the dog food that the dog likes is the one in the green bag. Don't get the purple bag again. Hey, do you remember that time when you were 7? That horrible teacher, Mrs. Hornsby? Oh, she was a right cow. Is there a new Netflix show on? Whereas listening to understand looks more like this. There's this sort of hurty elbow thing going on that I still think about every time that I'm alone. I think of that moment on the swing. And the beauty of the house meeting is that your only commitment is to listen. You don't have to come up with an answer on the spot just because somebody asked you in house meeting. You get to say as much as you want. I hear you, let me think about that and I'll get back to you in the week. Now, you do have to get back to them, but you don't have to make a decision on the spot. Tip number 3 is about flexibility, or the band set list. If you're in a band, you need to know what songs you're playing, what songs you're not playing. Sometimes you need to improvise and adapt to changes in tempo or key and to meet the audience that you're playing to. Flexibility in your family communication is about being open to new ideas, adjusting to changes in circumstances, and responding to the ebb and flow of emotions with some grace. What this means in practical terms, though, is that you can encourage your children to bring proposals to you and your co-parent, if there is one, to consider. Let me explain that a bit. In residential world, the teens I was looking after would, at this point, suggest activities they wanted to do, themes they wanted to explore in group, art projects that they wanted to do, as well as being practically helpful in keeping them entertained. The meta lesson there was giving them the chance to advocate for themselves. So rather than being grumpy because we ran out of peanut butter, we were empowering them to ask for things. And just because they asked for things didn't mean that they would get it. So if they wanted to go swimming with sharks or bungee jumping, I would consider it and maybe do some research before getting back to them to tell them that insurance won't cover them swimming with sharks or going bungee jumping. Encouraging your children to bring ideas to the house meeting and present them to you and your co-parent has to be accompanied with good reasoning. So if they want to stay out later than their normal curfew, they would come and ask and explain why. Maybe it's someone's birthday, maybe it's a special event, I don't know. I am consistently blown away by how mature and sophisticated teenagers can be when they do this for me in my sessions. They seem to be very eloquent, they seem to be very opinionated, and I think that is because they know that I will help their parents really listen and then have them decide. So it encourages teenagers to advocate for themselves, which is going to be a life lesson. Tip number 4 is probably my favorite. It's about sharing the spotlight. If you've ever gone to a concert, you know there's that moment where the lead singer introduces the band, and sometimes band members do a little jam or show off their talents in a solo piece. Now in house meeting, you can allow each family member the opportunity to express themselves and be heard just like that. So you could ask, what's one thing you were proud of doing this week, and let everybody share. Or you could use this opportunity to go around and share gratitude for one thing each family member did that you noticed and enjoyed and delighted in. In narrative therapy, this is called a sparkling moment, and you find that thing in your week that stands out and you really celebrate it with yourself and with your family. Tip 5, key changes. Allow me to nerd out on pop music for just 1 second. Because here's the deal. I love a good key change in a pop song. Sadly, I think most people find key changes to be terribly cheesy these days. But some of the best songs we know have a massive key change in it. Man in the Mirror. Key change. Backstreet Boys. Key change. Even good old Bon Jovi. Key change. Listening out for a key change in a pop song is like listening out for changes that are going on within your family. A key change in a song is probably the most dramatic part of the song. It kind of swells with emotion and draws everyone into the listening experience. The communication skill that goes with this is listening for the feeling. A lot of work that I do as a therapist with teenagers is helping them to name and identify feelings. To an untrained ear, that rant about Mrs. Hornsby's math class might sound a lot like complaining or venting, which it may well be. But if you listen closely, if you're listening for that key change, are they also saying that they're struggling with that class? Are they saying they're feeling a bit insecure about math? Listening for feelings is perhaps the most important communication skill you can master as a parent. Another way to think of this is about there being the content of what's being said. Listening and interacting on that level is like surfing on top of a wave. It's what we do most of the time. It's where most of the information is. But underneath, there's an entire emotional component to what's being said. There's an entire world beneath the waves. And listening into that is a bit more like being a scuba diver. And if you can do a bit of scuba diving and a bit of surfing, you'll be mastering a vital part of family communication. Those were the 5 essential skills to turn your family into one harmonious band. And I hope you get to go and create some beautiful music now. Don't forget to like and share and comment and subscribe and all of those things. If you want more information on parenting, families, teenagers, I've got lots more coming.